go this morning. I had to work. Yeah, had a lot of paperwork to do. I tried to get most of it done yesterday, but just couldn't finish it all.
You work out in the basement, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's a bedroom downstairs, and I use that as my office.
You know, I think I was in that house years ago.
Mm-hmm.
A guy by the name of Jim Schreit might have lived there, but we had a youth gathering, and I think we were in that house. How long have you had it?
2008 is when we moved in. But the Brewsters, I don't know if you know the Brewsters.
No, I think it would be.
They used to live in that house.
Before the Brewsters.
But I'm not sure who lived there before them.
I'll bet you that was the house, because we had a youth group, and we went into the basement door, and you've got a basement door, and I've noticed there's no other house on that street that has a door going into the basement, so it would have to be that house.
Yeah.
So, you ever walk over to Crystal's and eat?
I should. Well, I haven't been eating much at Crystal's lately, but.
But if you did, would you walk over? I mean,
we
you're
walk
not far.
a lot of places. We walk down the Greenway. We walk over to Baskin Robbins. Yeah, it's close to a lot of things.
What would it take you? 5 minutes to get to Baskin Robbins?
Probably 5 to 10 at the most.
Well, that Greenway. Now, before they had the Greenway, you couldn't do that.
No.
It's all Mouse Creek.
My boys, they walk to school, so it's real nice. It's a good
location.
location.
Do they walk to school through the Greenway?
Mm-hmm. Unless it's raining.
Where do they go? Cleveland High?
Yeah, Cleveland High.
Where does let's see. So they would leave your house, go across the field, hit the Greenway.
Well, just down the street, then turn and go through the little parking lot there.
Yeah.
Where
go under the bridge.
Yeah, under the bridge, or over the bridge, and then under the bridge.
And then, so it would take them 15 minutes?
Yeah, probably 10, maybe.
Do they want to do that?
They like to.
It's kind of neat, isn't it?
Yeah, it is neat, yeah.
Especially coming home.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a good walk, but it's convenient.
Now they've got police officers that drive. I don't know if they drive at night.
Yeah, I think mostly just during the day.
Can you see the Greenway from your house?
Not really.
You'd have to go like this.
Yeah, you'd have to.
What is that, about 2 miles or 4 miles?
The total mileage? Yeah. Since they've extended it, I'm really not sure the total mileage, but it's...
It's what, at Willow?
I would say over 5 miles maybe, but I'm not sure.
One way?
It goes all the way from over there, Home Depot.
Home Depot.
Yeah, it goes from there all the way down to Willow, I guess.
Does it go past Home Depot? Seems like it does, but I haven't been on it.
I haven't been down there in a long time. I keep meaning to ride my bike, but...
I do too.
Yeah, it's a...
You know, I don't know. It's a good thing to do, to have the Greenway to walk, but, you know, people are into exercise nowadays. Are you into exercising at all?
I get a lot on my job. I was trying to walk on a treadmill we just bought, but I hurt my knee actually on the treadmill, and I had to take a break from it, and so I haven't been back.
Isn't that something? You walk all kinds of land, have for years, and you get a treadmill
and hurt my knee.
And hurt your knee.
Yep. I was running actually. I was running.
That's life, isn't it?
It is. It is. But I had a previous knee injury. Not even sure what happened, to cause that injury, but it was in 2016, and I wasn't even sure what I did during that. If I think I went to the doctor, and when I went back this last time, they told me that I had in fact come to the doctor, the same doctor for the same injury, and they had also put an injection, steroid injection in my knee, and they did the same thing this time. And it wasn't just like a miracle cure, it still hurt a few days after that, but it gradually got better. So, but I may, if I get back on the treadmill, I may just start walking. I'm afraid of that, runner's knee or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But so.
Are you related to? Who are you related to in Cleveland?
Whitney, my cousins are Whitney Orr and Travis Orr.
And Jana, right?
Yeah, Jana's my sister,
yeah.
Melinda.
Are y'all from Cleveland?
Yeah. We grew up on Free Will Road, yeah.
Born and
raised in Cleveland.
Whereabouts on Free Will?
Where Lilac tees into Free Will Road in the Hopewell area.
Yep.
You just go straight across the street, and that's our house. It's
Born
got a
and-
field behind it.
Did you go to Hopewell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to walk to school as well. Till I got
And then
to
went to
Jr.
Bradley, I guess?
Bradley Jr. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've got the absolute dream job. I mean, if any people say, well, an appraiser is a good, he gets out and he's got to go. And I'm thinking, and then some people will say, well, a forest, everybody wants to go to school to be a forest ranger.
Mm-hmm.
And I, when everybody says that, I think, man, you don't know what David Myers does.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to do what I do. I really love doing what I do. That's what drives me to work as hard as I do. Is I just really, truly enjoy my job.
Did you wake up one day, or would you say you're a soil scientist? Is that what you call
scientist? Mm-hmm.
Soil scientist.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you become a soil scientist?
Well,
I mean, who
got
says
the
you're
degree.
a soil scientist?
Well, you got to get the degree first, and then you got
a degree in what?
Soil science. I mean, it doesn't always have to be that specific degree, but you can have like a biology degree, for example. But there's certain core classes that they require that you have in order to get into the field, to become a licensed consultant in Tennessee like I am. So like soil chemistry, soil fertility, I took all those classes.
So you went to school to be a biologist?
Well, I was a soil scientist. I went to the University of Tennessee School of Agriculture in Knoxville, and they have a soil science program. And
see, for somebody that hadn't been to college, I can't understand what that means. So you went to. You said, did you know you were going to be a soil scientist?
No, not really. I mean, it's one of those deals, I just had to pick a degree and it sounded interesting and then I just ran with it. But, once I got in, I didn't really fit the mold of the, typical person probably that goes into this field.
Well, how could you say that? Because
you
I don't
got
know
a
the
lot,
typical.
well, there's a lot of.
There's no typical.
There is no typical mold, but I mean, I'm just saying that there was a lot of people with backgrounds in farming and that come from rural Tennessee. They were in soil judging in high school or in 4-H, and they already knew a lot about soil.
So 4-H.
So you're in class with a lot of these types of people that kind of have that background. And here I don't have any agricultural background.
So you just went to UT?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know you was going to be a soil scientist?
No, I decided on the degree, and then
when you were there,
it was a shock initially. Like there was that, what am I doing here kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you could have been a doctor.
No.
I mean, could you have gone?
Well, I mean, doctor in the sense of like a doctorate in soil science.
But when you went to college, did you say, I'm going to be I don't know what I'm going to be?
Well, I wanted to do something scientific, but, I don't think, in engineering, I don't think I was good enough in math to be an engineer in school. So, it just seemed like the right fit. It's something like forestry or soil science seemed like the right fit for me at the time.
So you went through agriculture,
mm-hmm.
and then you thought, I'm going to specialize in soil science?
Well, there's different disciplines in the degree. I mean, there's people that specialize in fertility. They help farmers,
When you say fertility, you mean
like manage their land, the
more
nutrients in their land. They might have work for the USDA.
Like say, here's some dirt. So fertility would say add lime.
There's different disciplines.
That's not what you do.
Some people just go into research and become doctors, get their doctorate degree, and then they, help. One guy I knew up there, he got his doctorate from Cornell, and he went on to help farmers, in Africa and stuff like that, travel, help them.
So is your degree in agriculture or in soil scientist?
Well, it's an School of Agriculture is the degree, but I mean, it's soil science. It's a Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture with a...
Boy, that blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So who says you're a soil scientist?
Well, The state of Tennessee.
So they have
and
a
the state of
certificate
Georgia. Yeah, I have a license, and then in Georgia I have
to
a
be a
certificate.
soil scientist. You took an extra test or something?
You do. You have to, like, in Tennessee, you got to have at least 2 full years mapping experience working under somebody that's already got their license.
Mapping. What does that mean?
In the field. So you
Golly.
have to be directly supervised. I mean, they don't have to stand over your shoulder the whole time, but they've got to check your work, and they've got to, go behind you and make sure you're doing your job right. And you do that directly for 2 years, and then you got to take the exam. And like in Tennessee, they make you take a field exam where you got to go out and map lots, and then you got to take a written exam. It's the Fundamentals of Soil Science Proficiency exam.
Boy. So, but you didn't start out saying, I want to do this. You just thought, well, if that seems
because
interesting.
when you get your degree
in what?
In the soil science.
Okay, I'm a soil scientist.
Yeah, you get your degree,
but
but
when
that don't mean you're a soil scientist.
But when did you say, I'm going to get my degree in soil science instead of law or medical or something else?
Well, I made the decision with the catalog. I picked out the degree.
Which is what?
The plant and soil science at the time it was called plant and soil science with a concentration in environmental science and natural resources.
So what made you decide that?
Well, I may have heard from somebody that soil science was a good field to go into, it seems like. And then there was a guy I worked with that summer at Peyton's, a guy from Cleveland. I was doing a summer job at Peyton Southeastern, and he was going to the University of Georgia, and he was getting a degree in environmental science, which environmental science ain't necessarily soil science. I mean, environmental science is, just environmental science.
I've hired environmental soil scientists for wetlands and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's the area they went.
Yeah, some of those people, like, to be one of those guys, you have to have a degree in, like, say, ecology or something like that, or you could be a biologist.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to actually classify soil as long as doing a wetland, as long as it meets the other criteria of a wetland. So if you have wetland vegetation and the wetland hydrology, if you're an ecologist with no degree in soil or experience classifying soil, they allow you to actually, for a wetland, they allow you to classify soil. Like, say it's got this percentage of this, and
they being the state of Tennessee or the
Corps of Engineers is who oversees those guys. Yeah,
they oversee the state.
And TDEC, I guess, may be involved with it some too.
Boy, so that they oversee Tennessee and Georgia.
The Corps.
The Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, there's regions, like there's a field office, and they cover like a certain region. Like I think there's one up in Nashville or something that covers this region, or maybe even one in Knoxville. But I'm not
Boy,
sure.
that's complicated.
I don't like getting too involved with the wetlands, but I have assisted on some wetlands. Like, for example, in Marion County, there's they call it a wetland mitigation bank, and it's where they basically take existing wetlands, they try to create new wetlands in some cases, and then they sell those wetland credits.
Boy, they're getting way over my head. So let's say you're going to you've got a wetland. This area's got a wetland, and this has been designated as a wetland. Who designates that as a wetland?
Well, the Corps of Engineers.
They say this is a wetland. Now you can't. What can you not do in a wetland?
Well, you're not allowed to disturb them. I mean, and they allow you to. I guess the compromise is that if you disturb them, you've got to buy, wetland
Say I want
credit.
to disturb a 10 foot by 100 by 100 area.
You'd have to buy a wetland credit.
You'd have to buy. I'd have to pay somebody to fill this one.
Probably $25,000 or $35,000 an acre.
Golly!
So they're basically taking land that was useless before, and they're making money off of it, like you would be a development or something, I guess.
So they're saying you can't fill this or disturb it because you may kill the wetland. You may disturb the wildlife.
And there's some.
But you can. But if you'll pay us money, then we won't disturb it over here, so you're not disturbing that,
Mm-hmm.
but you're disturbing. It's like a energy credits or something, I guess, right?
Yeah, similar.
So if you had a large piece of property that was all wetlands, you could say, this property is not worth anything. And you'd say, well, yeah, it is, because I'm going to sell it as credits.
Yeah.
So that property could be valuable.
Yeah, yes, I think so. Yeah, I'm not. And then I worked on one in Georgia. That's the last one I worked for. It was in Dalton. It was for this, what are they called? Core Blue Ecology out of Atlanta. They had me do the wetland. And the reason why I had to come in, and the reason why I had to come in Marion County, was because in Marion, for example, there was a lot of existing wetlands. Like it was a soybean field, mostly soybean fields that they had drained, artificially drained to allow the water to flow out, when it flooded. And so in these existing wetlands that are obviously wetlands and they have the vegetation and the hydrology, they let their own in-house engineers, or their ecologists that work for the engineering firm in Chattanooga, they went and delineated a lot of the wetlands. But then there was a lot of the soybean field that wasn't necessarily wetlands that they wanted to convert to wetlands. So they fill in the ditches. They try to hold the water in, when it floods, as long as they can. And then they plant, species that are water loving, like tulip poplar and maple trees and
Lilies?
wing dams, things like that. Yeah, vegetation. So they establish their vegetation, but then their guys aren't allowed to classify the soil because it didn't meet the other two criteria. It's in the process of meeting them, but so that's where I come in. And this field, what's crazy about it is when they first planted the trees and everything, you could drive around with ease. It was pretty much looked the same as it did when I started. It was a soybean field. It was just starting to grow up, and you could drive around. But I'm supposed to go back for 7 years and check these data points. There's 21 data points scattered about this whole farm. But over the course, in this last, about a week or two ago, I was out there, and for the last time, I finished it up finally, and it's been 7 years I've gone back. But now the vegetation is so grown up, and there's no trails going to, I can't believe they didn't maintain trails going to the data points. So you're just having to mow over these trees. I mean, you're not killing them, you're knocking some of them down, but we're back there in a little, side by side, driving to these data points, just...
It's a normal day in America, and everybody's driving to this job and driving to this job and going to this factory and going to that factory, and while they're doing that, you're driving to Marion County, which is Jasper and to the right.
Yeah, it's right.
And you get there, and you're gonna get a two-wheeler, or do you just?
Well, the guy that actually did the wetland, he's from Macon, Georgia, and he has like 3 side-by-sides at the farm.
What's the side-by-side?
Those Kubota, those like Polaris Rangers, like the
four-wheeler,
the little 4x4s that 2 people can sit in, and I call them side-by-sides, I guess, but
four-wheeler.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but he has 2 Kubotas and a Polaris Ranger. Well, we took of the 2 Kubotas, we took the nicer one, but we ended up getting it stuck back there, and we were 2 miles from the barn.
But I mean, everybody else is getting ready to fight the battle, and you're driving to Marion.
Yeah, it's a different.
I mean, it's a whole different.
It's a truly. I mean, you want environmental work, you've got environmental work. That's what it is. It's just that's what I signed up for, and that's what I got.
So you would get there at what time? 8 o'clock in the morning? 9?
Well, that's such a long drive. I think a 9:30 range. Hopefully, I try to pick up my guy about. I pick him up around 7:45, or he's got to take his daughter to school and stuff. So you can be flexible. Yeah. He could say 8:15. You'd say okay. We'll just be late. We get on the road, but we work a little late if we have to, you know.
So you drive to somewhere like Marion, and you'll get out of your car, and
put our gear on.
Now I've got a picture of his gear. Do you have a picture of his gear? Him. We'll pull up a picture here of you of you suited up. So you put on your gear, and you get on the Polaris, or if you don't have a Polaris, you walk. A machete?
Yeah, we carry a machete, and you know, I'm looking into maybe getting one of those weed eaters that you can put a blade on the end of, but
Yeah.
I don't know, just maybe too much trouble. But really, some stuff's just too thick, and you know, I get to the site, and you know, because a lot of people's definition of thick is different than mine.
Yeah, right.
You know, it could be nice, beautiful open hardwoods to me, and somebody
Yeah.
says it's wooded, and
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean by wooded?
Yeah.
You know? But we do have a machete, and we'll bushwhack some. But
How do you know where the site is?
well, I have a lot of tools, and those tools have gotten better over the years, so I'm much faster and more proficient than I've ever been.
Before it was a transit?
Well, we didn't use the transit. The old school way was, we took a compass and we paced, and we'd have to pace and shoot a bearing. And
Shoot a bearing with what?
Like with the compass, like we'd.
Like a
Like
Boy
back-
Scout, like a Boy Scout would.
Tennessee, when I started out in Athens, Georgia, and they had a different, I mean, they might have grid staked some down there, but it seems like there might have been a track or two that they grid staked on. But we would have them set up nail sets, like at various locations, or they would just already be there when they were surveying, some of them. And we'd use a combination of nail sets in the property corners. And so when you get on a nail set and you have it on your map, well, you can get a point there if you want to. You take a sample there, so that's a known location. And then you kind of just start going off of that point and triangulating. So if you pace 100 and you get another sample, then you shoot a bearing back, and then you make a little mark on your map, 100 feet from your known point. And then if you pace 100 feet this way, then you can shoot back at your known point and just see if you're right about your distance and everything. So
And
it was a huge pain to do it that way. It was, and that was a really tough way to do it.
And it sounds like it's not an exact science for the science. In other words,
Well, I think the most important thing in what we do is knowing where you are on the property. That's the most important thing. And
I mean, it doesn't matter if you're here or,
yeah,
10,
and I gotta
or
admit,
20 feet
I'm
over.
sure there were times, and unfortunately, back when I first started mapping, I would spend
And when
a
you
long
say
time. Like if I
when you
got
say
off,
mapping, what do you mean?
well, soil mapping, going out and making a map of the soil. So
You mean like a map? What? Explain that.
well,
Like I've got
you start.
a soil map right there on the wall.
Yeah.
So
You just
and you
start-
did that.
Yeah.
So how do you?
Well, you
that's
just start
what-
anywhere. You just,
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to make a map of the soil. So when you're doing like a subdivision,
Not a map
for
of the
example,
roads, a map of the soil.
Yeah, just the soil. I mean, and features, drains, if you have drains, sinkholes, rock outcrops, anything that will advert gullies, wells, anything that, will affect the soil map. When the environmentalist looks at it, they see a drain, you got to have 25-foot setback on either side of the drain.
So you
So
say
we're
there's
mapping all those
you
features.
say there's a drain here,
Mm-hmm.
and you're within 2 or 3 feet, right? Obviously.
But the key is in mapping, probably the number one thing that's important to me is having an accurate topography map. That means more than anything to me when I'm mapping.
If you didn't have it, you'd have
Because
to do.
your drains are drawn in for you. But the key is, and I say accurate topo, because I've gotten plenty of topos that you can just throw them in the garbage. I mean, that somebody's put a topo, they've taken off the internet, a USGS, and then they dress it up, and then they put it on the plat just so they'll have a topo on there. But in some cases, I wonder if it's even overlaid right, like if it's even, the drains where it's supposed to be and everything like that.
Now, a regular GPS topo is supposed to be within 2 or 3 feet.
it's supposed to be accurate. And a lot of surveyors run field run topos, and those are always really good.
Here's your photos.
Yeah. See, there's you. So explain that now. So you got hats for the sun, right? Obviously, and then you've got the vest. What's the vest for?
Well, I know the vest looks dorky, and
a
lot of people like to make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, you look like you're going fishing or you're on a safari," but I used to not wear a vest, and I would put my compass, and I have a clinometer that I shoot slopes with.
What's a kilometer?
Kilometer reads slopes. So like, rise over run. Like if you have 100 feet, and if it's a 30% slope, then that means that in 100 feet it drops 30 feet. If you go out.
So what is the kilometer?
The clinometer, it shoots angles, but it also
Is
shoots
it like
slope, which slope percent. Like I said, a rise over run, if you go 100 feet out, and like if it's a 15% slope, you take a piece of land and you go 100 feet out, it's going to drop 15 feet in that 100 feet. From this elevation to this elevation.
But what is a kilometer? Like a
binocular? What it is the key is you hold it over one of your eyes and you keep the other eye open, and it's whatever you're shooting at has to be.
Why do you keep the other eye open?
So you can see whatever you're shooting at eye level. Because this eye's looking through the clinometer, and you see this little, dial in there that, tells you the slope. And so with this other eye, you're shooting at something that's eye level. So if I don't have anybody with me, a lot of times I'll take our hand auger we use to dig the holes, and I'll stick it in the hole and kind of have the handles at eye level. Then I'll walk up the hill and I'll shoot at the handles. Or my guy, I know he's about the same height as me, and I'll just shoot at his eyes. But that's important because slope, when you do a map, you're breaking it up in the soil types and the slope percentages. Like it kind of tells the environmentalist, hey, this is flat, this is 2 to 5%. Or when you get into 5 to 15%, it's kind of a moderate slope. Now you get into 15 to 30, a little steeper. And when they're putting in a system, when you get in steeper slopes, you have to allow a little more room.
When you say a system,
a septic system, yeah.
But you're a soil scientist, but you don't just map for soil maps for septic tanks. Your job is to map the soil, right?
Yeah, I'm classifying it. We have what we call soil series, and they're just common names, and that's how we identify the soil.
How many soil types are there?
There's numerous. Just too
like
many
100?
to count almost.
Like 100?
Yeah, there's just so many. And quite honestly, the Piedmont where I mapped, there was just a handful of soils we mapped over and over and over. Same like Packlet, Cecil, Rhine, and then hard labor, Helena.
So what's this? Can you tell by looking at it?
It almost looks like kind of some topsoil, to be honest.
What is topsoil? So topsoil isn't a soil?
It's just the surface layer. It's it's more granular, has more organic matter in it, and
so topsoil.
Yeah,
it's not a.
Yeah, it's just the layer with the best. It's loamy usually in texture. It's just the surface horizon. And then once you get below that, you get into what we call a B horizon, and it's got more clay accumulation.
So you have to classify it. You can't just say, it's got topsoil.
No,
you got to say it's.
You give it a classification like this is an A horizon. It's you tell the structure, the texture. If you're classifying, I don't do that when I'm out mapping all the time. It's not necessary for for septic systems. Unless I'm doing like when they do these drip emitter systems, they call it, like they're not real common, but they're starting to be for large developments. They're starting to put in for a whole community a drip system. And when they do that and we map the soil, we have to dig backhoe pits, and then I have to get in the pit and classify the soil, accurately, make a profile description.
Is it all the same generally?
It changes. It just depends on the soil type we're in. So what it is when that goes to Nashville, they take those descriptions and they say, okay, I'm going to give this loading rate. And they have a chart which says if you have silty clay with this structure and this texture, then it's this loading rate, and it's just a chart that gives them the different loading rates. So the loading rate is basically telling you how much you can load that land, like gallons per day per square foot. So if you have a field that's clay, you're going to have to load less gallons per day per square foot. So it'd be like a 0.5 or 0.05 or something like that. But then if you have a nice loamy soil, then you're going to be able to load it more, so there would be more like a 0.3 gallons per day per square foot. So they take that, when I do that soil map and those descriptions, they give it, Nashville's the one that decides on these community systems, what the loading rate's going to be.
Boy, that's over my head.
It's not too bad. But
So if, so on a normal day, you're going to Marion County on this particular. So you did that for
we got off 7 on that years. Tangent. That's not my everyday. We got on wetlands, but that's.
But you signed up for that for 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand you had to do it for 7 years.
So in 2012, you signed up. You said, "I'll do this."
More or less. I mean, it didn't seem so bad at the time, and I do enjoy going back. And I kind of thought this last time, I thought, I'm going to miss this place because it's spectacular. The scenery, the Sequatchie Valley.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful place. So we're just sitting there with this backdrop of the mountain, the Cumberland Mountains there, the rock escarpments. It's a beautiful place.
So you were to do what there?
At the Marion County job?
Yeah, at that job.
Well, what it is like my job there was to classify the soil to see the process is they were trying to convert these soils to wetlands, to hydric soils. And they done some mitigation stuff to the site to make it where water would hopefully stand longer when it floods, because it floods a lot, this place does. And so they're trying to hold the water in longer to make it and to create hydric soils. So over the course of these 7 years, I'm seeing if these soils are changing. Each year, is it the same or is it changing?
Is what changing?
Is it changing from what it was before to more of a hydric soil?
How do you know?
Well, we know by when we're determining if a soil is wet, like if it's got a water table, we call it redoxamorphic features, and it's basically where the iron is become reduced in the soil, and you'll see these what we call gray models, and then you'll also see manganese concentrations. So what we do is we dig a hole, and it's a process. We get to a data point, we dig a hole in the ground. And
how do you know where that data point is?
I'm using my GPS, thank goodness. Because it would be a nightmare trying to find these. So I have waypoints on my GPS, and I target the specific points, because when you're driving back to them, the vegetation's just overwhelming.
And how often would you go to this site?
How often?
Once a month or once every year?
No, just once a year for 7 years. Mm-hmm.
7 times?
Yeah, 7 different times. And this was the final time that I've been to.
So you drive, you dig the same hole as the hole?
It's a different hole, and I've actually worried a little bit that we might accidentally dig in the same spot that we did before, which is not good because the soil's now mixed up. It's not going to give you a good, yes.
But the odds of that would be slim.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you just try to, sometimes you can see a little indention in the ground where we put the soil back, so we can kind of tell, hey, we dug here. But
so you're going back to these places, like on this particular job, you're going back once a year, and so that sort of thing to me would take all day. That's one day.
Well, it took 2 days actually. We can do about 10 points a day.
Oh, how many points are there at this place?
21.
21.
Yeah, so we get there one day, we knock 10 of them out.
And so so back again to the average guy is getting ready, going to work. He's punching a clock. He's waiting till 12, and he's going to go to the gondolier and eat. and he's going to get off at 5 and he's going to head home.
Mm-hmm.
But you are darning your vest, driving to Marion County,
Mm-hmm.
getting in a two-wheeler of some sort, and you're driving to this remote site where if you had a heart attack, nobody would know.
Right. Yeah.
And
There's times when we're out in the middle of nowhere.
And you're taking your lunch, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We do. Yeah, we load it all on. We take a Yeti type. Well, it's a Yeti cooler, and we put ice and carry water bottles and all our drinks and stuff with us, and chairs. We put those in the back of the ATV, and and then we just have a nice little picnic under a shade tree and just sit there.
So you got got a big cooler, or a one man thing.
Like a little Yeti cooler, about
and
one
you
of
stop
those
at
medium
the
size.
convenience store.
Yeah, that's our normal routine.
Which one?
We stop at the We stop at that new racetrack that they built on 25th Street every morning. That's where we stop.
The one before you get to I-75.
Yeah, that one right there. That
So
brand new one they built.
That's $1.
Yeah, we stop in there, get ice.
$1.29.
Mm-hmm. And I try to bring my own water. Like I have some Nalgene bottles, and I fill them at the house with some, filtered water.
Cleveland Utilities water.
More or less. Yeah, it's good stuff. In fact, it tastes probably better than a lot of the bottled stuff does.
So then you pack your. What time is this? 8 o'clock.
Well, I'm up usually. I try to get out the door about between 7:30 and 8. I mean, it's usually closer to 8, but I'm up about 5:30 or 6, sometimes.
And
5.
you don't have to worry about what your hair looks like, what you're wearing, what your shoes look like. It makes no difference.
On some sites it does. And I mean, I meet a lot of clients, so I want to look, professional and, want to look clean.
But I mean, it's not like they're hiring an attorney or a banker.
Yeah, you don't need a tie or nothing like
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
yeah.
So then
It would be odd to show up as a soul scientist with a tie.
They probably think you weren't a soil
to
scientist.
do that sometimes. See what happens.
you pack the cooler. Now, if it's in the dead of winter and it's 36 degrees that day, you still get ice?
We're still out doing it. No, well, ice, not always. Sometimes we just, it'll be cold anyway from just sitting in my truck overnight.
Do you get gas no matter what?
Every morning?
Yeah.
Almost. I mean, I spend a lot in gas.
Are you the type that you're going to stop there, you're going to get ice, and you're going to fill up anyway?
Sometimes
or do you wait
I do.
every other day?
Sometimes if I got a half a tank, I might go ahead and fill up. I like the
routine.
Yeah, well, just knowing I have a full tank and going to these sites.
Yeah.
Because I've been known to almost overlook that, so I try to keep it full.
So then, do you get coffee there?
No, I usually make my coffee at home. I have one of those Keurigs, and I make Starbucks, and I like the Starbucks coffee.
I do too. Does it taste the same? The Keurig?
The Keurig.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
I mean, if I stop at Starbucks.
Oh, it's a Starbucks coffee.
Yeah. In other words,
I don't think so, because they're. I think what makes theirs is they're using really fresh beans, and they're probably grinding them right there on the spot, and theirs is super fresh. I think that's what makes the difference, and probably the way they, brew it too.
There's something different that a Keurig just can't quite get.
But what I like about the Keurig is, I've bought the little pouches of coffee, and you pour it in your little jar, but it gets about halfway down, and you notice the coffee starts getting drier.
You mean a coffee can?
Yeah, the coffee, you can tell it gets drier by the
Yeah.
time you get to the bottom, and it's just not got that full flavor like it does when you first put it in.
But you won't stop at Starbucks. You'll make it at your house.
Yeah, I will. I mean, sometimes I do, and the other morning, it took me like an hour just to get a cup of coffee because I ran out of coffee. I forgot to get some, or have my wife order it when she got the groceries. And so I had to pick up my truck at Don Ledford. And so as we're trying to get out the door, I go to Don Ledford, we get the truck, and we have to switch out. I was driving my dad's old truck, and I had to switch our gear to my dad's old truck. Actually, I meant go get the stuff out of my truck. It was being worked on. And so I thought, well, I'll just stop by and Bojangles and get a biscuit. And then I'll go by the Jittery Joe's and get a cup of coffee.
Why
I
not
like
get
their
a coffee at? Is it pretty
but
good?
they don't have the coffee shop open anymore. So I was like,
You mean
dang,
Jittery Joe's?
Yeah, at the Cherokee
Yeah.
Farm. I was like, dang, because I know Jittery Joe's because I used to live in Athens, Georgia, and that's where that place started, I believe.
I
believe
think
it's
so,
down
yeah.
there, yeah. So I'm like, well, I'll go to Starbucks instead. And so I go over there, I hit Peerless, drive down to the one over, on Paul Huff.
And the line's
The
plumb out.
line, of course, is backed all
Golly.
the way out into the little
Yeah.
side road there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way I've got to get on the road, because we had to drive to Signal Mountain. And it's raining this morning. It's just a horrible morning.
And you hadn't had coffee.
Hadn't had my coffee. It's raining. So I'm like, okay, I'll go. I'd heard Hardee's has good coffee now. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to the Hardee's on Paul Huff, and then I'll hit the interstate.
Yeah.
We'll go by that Hardee's, and it's backed all the way out to almost the road.
Golly.
So I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't get a cup of coffee. So we hit the interstate. I'm like, well, I'm going to get off at the Pilot here. Decide to go through the McDonald's. I order a large coffee. And she hands it to me, and it's got the lids that they use on the drink cups with a straw. She hands me a straw. And how in the world are you supposed to drink coffee with a straw?
Yeah.
And so I'm just laughing like, can this morning get any crazier trying to get... So I have to go into the Pilot, and then I got one of their cups and lids, and I went up to the guy and I said, hey, what do I need to pay you for this cup and lid? Whatever it costs.
So you're getting
and he said, just take it. And I'm like,
So you're getting a cup for your coffee from...
it was just a bad morning. And then my dad's truck, it's a 97 model Chevy, and it's raining, and the windshield wipers I don't think have been replaced in probably 15 years or so. It's just like, all the way to Chattanooga, just.
Now, where are you heading for this?
I had to go up to Signal Mountain, this place called Grandview. So, and then what got even crazier that morning was the roads were wet, and we're going up this road called Roberts Mill Road.
The middle of nowhere?
No, it's going up it's the back way to Signal Mountain. You go through Hickson, and then there's a place called Falling Water. You cross where 27 is right there. It goes towards Dayton. You go under that bridge, and then you start going up this mountain right here. It goes up on Signal Mountain. Well, it's a really steep, curvy road. It's very steep. So there's the first curve, it's real steep and sharp. And my dad's truck, the tires spin on it. It's got good tires, so I'm like, turn. And I knew it was going to do it, but I didn't know how bad. And it's just like spinning so much, smoke's coming out of the back, And so I had to creep up the mountain because I'm not kidding you, I'd almost fishtail.
You can't figure that in the job.
No, and I would almost fishtail, so I had to take that. But that thing, because my truck is like a Cadillac compared, that I like that truck, but you're sitting up like this up against the steering wheel. You can't push the seat back because it's a single cab. And mine, I can pull the seat all the way back, and it's just more luxury, So.
And all of this on top of not having your coffee.
Well, I had the coffee at that point, but it's just always, we drive a lot, so you're just dealing with traffic all the time. It's just a nightmare. You never know when you're going to get into traffic. And actually, one of the reasons why I had taken my truck in is there was a recall on the brakes. Well, it's the vacuum pump for the brakes, so it started doing it worse and worse. So like if you're going, what it would do it like if you're going down a hill and you're just barely using your brakes, the brakes would act like, how your car when it's off, power steering and no power brakes, it would do like that. Like it felt like you didn't have any power brakes.
Yeah.
And you were pushing them in, they would eventually stop, but you had to push hard and it just was very uncomfortable. And it was doing it gradually. Well, I had my truck worked on and I had read about it and knew there was a recall. Well, I'd had my truck worked on a few months ago, and I said, hey, will you check into this brake issue, Well, because it didn't come up on their computer as that it was bad, they wouldn't fix it. So here I am. Well, we were in Chattanooga. We had left Signal Mountain. We got on 27, and there was a traffic jam. They're working on the 27.
Yeah,
You know, they're winding. It's real nice what they're doing. Well, they had bottlenecked it into one lane up there before it made that turn. You know, where 24 merged
Yeah.
in. So it's a horrible traffic jam. So we're sitting there the whole time. I'm kind of going down this hill, and it's doing that the whole entire time. So I'm just a nervous wreck. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I was like, that's it. You know, I got to get it fixed. And I want to say the next day, it might have been a Friday, but it rained that day. And so it was a perfect day. Okay, I can do an office day and take my truck. I think it was a Thursday, but unfortunately, they had to order the pump. And so that's why I had to borrow my dad's old truck and take it up the Signal.
There's no way that you can project what's going to happen on your job with all the variables.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get through the chaos of getting there, then you're sitting in the middle of nowhere with a fold-out chair having lunch with a guy that helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all converse, or is it check your emails, or?
Well, we do some, but we mostly sit on our phone.
So he does his thing, you do yours.
Yeah.
It's like 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour.
Well, I just, I have the luxury of taking as long of a lunch as I feel like.
Yeah.
But I try to keep it within an hour, but, sometimes it's 15 minutes. Sometimes if I feel like it, I'll take 45 minutes or an hour.
So once you're out there into this wilderness, away from the chaos of everything else, then you can have, in essence, a picnic lunch like most people look forward to on a Sunday afternoon twice a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are, and we have lunch in some of the craziest places, just on the side of the road. I mean, it's just such random places. It's like that's the thing, you never know where we're going to eat lunch today. It could be in a church parking lot somewhere under a shade tree. It could be just at the last job. It could be at the people's property. Hey, can we eat lunch here? It's awkward sometimes, but
at 11:30 or 12:30.
We just got to get her done so we can get to the next job. You don't have time to sit there and worry about where you're eating. You just get her done. And
it's just at 12 or 11:30?
We take the lunch.
Yeah.
It varies, but sometimes 11, sometimes it averages 12, I would say, because we're starving by then.
Yeah.
But I have to eat lunch. I mean, I know some people think they can work through, but me personally, I just feel like I need it for energy, to get me through the rest of the day, but.
Would you pack the lunch of a morning or the night before?
I make it in the morning, yeah.
I've always found it's hard to make a lunch when you're not hungry.
It is, yeah.
I mean,
it's annoying. I really don't like it.
I mean, it's like this bologna sandwich is not any good. How do I make this? And then
I get up. That's the first thing I do is I make my lunch and get it over with.
Before you eat breakfast?
Before I do anything, I make my lunch and get that over with. Because that seems like the most annoying, hard part of my morning is doing that. So I want to get that over with first.
You slap 2 pieces of bread and a bologna and.
I do the ham, turkey. I like tomato on it. Cheese. My wife buys different cheeses.
You buy the sliced ham?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know that's not good for you sometimes, but
you mean like Cooks or whatever?
We get it at Publix and Cooks, yeah.
Already pre-cooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She gets that now. When you go to Publix, they already have it cut for you. They've got a little,
Oh yeah. So you just
freezer there with it already in there, and and it's different kinds, and it's usually the kinds we like. So
you get ham? What?
Tavern ham, and get some oven roasted turkey breast, boar's head,
and 2 pieces of colonial bread.
I usually she gets that bread at Publix that's from the deli. It's kind of it's good bread, but it gets stale too fast. Well, it's perfect the first couple of days, and then by Wednesday, it's already getting stale. And then by Friday, you almost don't even want to eat it. You want to go to a different bread.
So it's almost like you'd be better off to get. Now, you can't hardly buy colonial bread anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I get my wife for not. She buys that Wonder Bread. I grew up on colonial, and I don't know why they don't have colonial bread.
I don't either. It's weird. Never thought
Wonder
about it.
Bread or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you get on Sundays, you get for the week, the groceries?
Yeah, usually, yeah. And I like to bring also, I'm big on fruit. I like grapes and
But now, wait,
I'll
two
cut.
sandwiches or one?
I just eat one, but my helper a lot of times will eat two. I don't know, one is plenty for me.
I mean, one sandwich with ham, cheese,
Yeah,
tomato,
I'm full. Tomato,
mayonnaise or mustard.
Usually mayonnaise.
You put it on in the morning.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of soggy, by lunchtime, but.
You could get those packets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably should. But and then chips. I like my chips. Been trying to eat the healthier ones.
You put it in Tupperware or just wrap it up in a?
Well, we got these little bags that they're Ziploc bags, but they're the reusable ones. They're rubber and they got a little. She bought some of those, and so she's like, you got to stop wasting those little sandwich bags. It is important, just doing away with waste the most you can. Like bringing my own water instead of getting water bottles. Because we were just using a lot of water bottles, and
so you would think that a soil scientist would be into climate change.
Conscientious.
Yeah,
of that.
is that?
I mean, I'm not real gung-ho like environmentalist. I never have been really, but I do think about those things. I do appreciate the environment. And, with what we do, groundwater protection is very important, I think. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that aspect that, hey, we're here to protect the environment. That's why we're doing this, And
so it's not just a job. It's you really see it as a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to help protect the environment. I mean, that's kind of part of it. But like I say, I'm not one of these real hardcore environmentalists, you might say, but I do appreciate that stuff. So.
But now some people, like I've called you before to have like a 40 acres soil mapped, and so you go out and you map it. You say this area is this type, and this area is this type, and this area is that type, and then I have to take that and you draw it, and I overlay it on a surveyor's survey, and I turn it in for approval.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for strictly just septic tank. It means nothing. But you don't just do soils for septic. You do soils for a wide variety of it.
Well, not really. I mean, then the wetland thing, that's really the only thing I've strayed from just septic systems. But I've done a little compaction test, but it's not the real technical stuff. It's and down in Georgia, they allow soil scientists, like if they're doing a mobile home and they compact, they got to have somebody check the compaction for the
What do you
mobile home pad.
take that hammer and?
Yeah, I take a penetrometer, they call it, and you see pounds per square foot.
And you just write down what it was, and they'll
yeah, but there's
that.
a much more sophisticated way, and really, I think that we are, soil scientists should be included in that. Be able to do those types of compaction studies that engineers do, just because that's our field. Bulk densities and things like that. We study that stuff, and that's what they do. They take samples and look at the bulk density of the soil and look at the, same kind of thing, classify the profile. They go out these geotechs, and that's fine. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of liability to do that sort of thing. But thing is I stay plenty busy doing, it's what I do. So I have no desire to do
soil
anything.
mapping.
Yeah, just the soil mapping for septic. But I think if they would allow us to do it, we could get into doing maybe a wider range of things, but we're just not allowed to. We're just precluded from doing that sort of
But
thing.
as long as and you would a soil scientist, as you would know, I obviously would refer to you as far as whether soil is compact as well as I would anybody, because you know dirt.
Yeah, but if it was a construction site, like I think the engineers or that somebody that does it regularly and knows what they're, I think it's something I could learn, is what I'm saying, but they have certain, I guess, instruments and tools that they use that are probably sophisticated, really expensive equipment, that they use, I guess.
Now, on a normal day, what time would you get home? 4, 5, 6?
Well, I should get home about 5 or 5:30, but in the summer, we work a lot of late days, like a lot of times, on average this summer, I bet we got home at 6:30 or 7. And
How
I'm just
come? Why so
exhausted
late?
by the time I get home.
Why that late?
Well, just trying to get as much done as we can in a given day. Just, trying to do as much as I can, because the demand's so high right now that any chance I get, I'm just, trying to do more.
In other words, the economy's real good right now as far as you're concerned.
It is, and I'm thankful for that. But there's just a lot of pressure, I think, to get to as many, because people call me and they, and they can't get anybody, or they can't get anybody to answer their phone, and you take their name, and I have a hard time saying no to people. And
I'm waiting on you for 2 jobs, and you've already forgot them.
Yeah, I try to keep track of everybody. But anyway, so I try to get to as many people as possible. So if I can pick up one more job, and I say, well, I'll get home. Now, I used to be pretty adamant. When I first started my business, I'd make sure I was home by 5:30. I would just blow off whatever, But it's just really been the last 2 or 3 years that I've gotten where I've done these late days.
It's probably When did you start? When did you become a soil scientist on your own?
Well, in 2006, I moved back from Georgia, Athens, Georgia, and started my business. It was late. It was in
So
October.
in 2005, you were working for another guy.
I was down in Georgia.
Doing what they wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was getting mostly large tracts. That's almost all that we done. When I first started out, I was doing, we call them individual lots, when you go to a single property, somebody's wanting to build one house on. I did a lot of those, in which he wanted me to do that, because that's how you actually get a lot of training, because you're seeing a lot of different soil situations and everything. So, but we would do mostly big tracts, and he took a lot of, his name got out a lot in North Georgia mountains, so we'd go stay out of town, we'd get a hotel and stay for the week, and we'd map, from dusk till dawn pretty much every day. And
it's almost like a camping trip.
Kinda, yeah, it is.
Without having to stay in a tent.
Yeah, we stayed at the Stratford Motel or Hotel there in LJ a lot. And there, really, at the end of my career with him, we were working on a really large development on the Coosawhattie River in LJ, and it was like 600 acres maybe.
Golly.
And it was in madness. It was madness. And he actually, we opened a temporary office in LJ. In the motel room, he rented it for 3 months or whatever. And we had a desk in there with a computer. We had a plotter, to plot maps off with, a 42-inch plotter in that motel room. And we would have to, this is crazy to think about, but we would come home from the field, and we would have to sit there and work in that office till like 10 o'clock at night sometimes.
To plot, to write down what the information
was. We would
was.
download our GPS points, and then we would plug them in. He liked to stay on top of stuff. He didn't want to get behind. That was his big thing, staying on stuff. Don't, just get it done, and then that way you're on top of it.
Yeah.
And so that's a good thing to learn, but unfortunately it requires long days sometimes to get it done. But that's what we did, and it's rare, you get that large of tracts, but we did a lot of big tracts. It was a good time. But But what kept us so busy was, like I say, he established there was a lot of activity in the mountains, the North Georgia mountains.
Especially
a lot
in
of people,
06.
Yeah, a lot of people wanting to move there and have the mountain views.
You know, speaking of that, I was in Blue Ridge, Georgia, at a Waffle House. This is off the subject, sort of. At like 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, and I'm sitting up there at the table, and I'm talking to this guy that I didn't know, and come to find out, all he did was buy a large mountain property and divide it up and resell it. That's all he did. He didn't do anything but that. So if that guy, he would have had to have called but anyway, that was unique. But what I'm saying is that's the type of guy that would hire a soil scientist, because a soil scientist would tell him about what does a soil scientist that maps a piece of property tell you? I mean, what would it tell you that?
Well, it's like, for example, if you're in the mountains, you want to start with a quality 2-foot contour topo, flown, ideally a LiDAR topo, and they did a lot of those for us, and they were good. I mean, if there was a road bed, it would show up. If there was a drain,
In other words, every 2 feet, it shows you how the difference
and
in elevation.
The slopes are important. You want to know, because there's a lot of really steep slopes.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to put anything on over 35%.
Because you're doing this not for a well, but for a septic tank.
For the septic. So we go in there and like on that development, we're mapping the slopes, and we're usually just using the contours to draw that in. We're drawing in the slopes.
So what do? Go out every 50 feet or 100 feet? Or?
Well, it varies. Like that development, the 600 acres was what we call a level 2 at the time, and it's a level 1 is like a preliminary, just, hey, what's this site? What's the soil?
It's wooded.
Yeah.
That'll be $1,000.
Yeah, it's wooded. Yeah, each piece of information's a little bit more.
Yeah.
So then a level 2, but it's a level 3 is when you get a permit for a house to be constructed, you've got to have a level 3. And a level 1 is your bare bones preliminary, but a level 2 is somewhere in between. It's just a little more detailed. So we're generally putting holes at least every 200 feet normally, whereas a level 1, you're like every 400 feet maybe. I mean, you're just kind of a general idea of what the soils are. Is there a lot of rock on this property? Is it got really, but that's what we were doing is a level 2. So it would have taken forever to do a level 3 on this, 600 acres.
A level 3 is almost what the person gets that buys the tract, that buys the piece to put
in order
to
submit it to the health department, it's got to be a level 3. That's Georgia. That's Georgia's level 3 is equivalent to what we call a high intensity map. In Tennessee, they say high intensity. So when you're going to build a house, I give you a high intensity map.
So if you've got a piece of property that you're going to divide up, and it's not in an existing subdivision that's been approved and recorded by the health department, you've got 5 acres out here, and you're going to divide it 2 acres on one and 3 acres on the other. You've got to have a high intensity soil map.
Yeah, it's required by the law, by the state.
State, not the federal government.
Yeah,
but
it's state of Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation.
So you'll go out and say it's topsoil, it's lomus, it's.
Well, when we classify it, I mean, we're in the ridge and valley here, so you got ridges and valleys and so on. So, on a lot of your ridges, you'll have a certain geological formation. So the geology is very key in what, we expect to find. So, whatever geology type I'm in, I pretty much know, hey, I'm probably going to find this or that soil. I pretty like say, for example, I'm on Candies Creek Ridge Road, and in the ridge in between there, that ridge. What is that called? Clingman Ridge or something? Clingman Ridge, I think. But anyway,
that's a technical name.
Yeah,
we call it just a Candies Creek.
frontage roads on the other side.
Yeah.
Well, that ridge is cherty limestone material, so it's going to be your Fullertons, your Bodines, your Menvales. It's typically going to be good soil.
So you have to know those names.
Yeah, you know those names, and you know, like a Fullerton is a cherty soil that's got a little more clay in it, and it's going to be around a 60-minute perk rate, whereas a Menvale is going to be more gravelly, looser, more loamy, sandier and such, and it's going to be more of a 45. And then Bodine's going to be really cherty, like where you almost need a backhoe to view Bodine. You know, if you try to auger it with a hand auger, you're not going to get nowhere.
Is Bodine
But it rips out. You know, it's not like solid rock, but it's just, you've seen everybody that lives here, you drive around, you look at these profiles along the road, you see a bunch of chert rock. Well, try digging a hole through that.
You can't dig a hole with it.
Yeah, so
is that what minute is that?
Bodine would be a 30. But then as you like progress off of that ridge into frontage road, about the point you're at frontage road and beyond, across the interstate, over into Mouse Creek and beyond, that's pretty much all shale bedrock. It's a lot of locals call it slate, but it's shale. It's a mudstone, it's a siltstone, it's a clay stone, whatever you want to call it, but it weathers out to all sorts of different textures, and it's a very hard soil, sometimes to figure out, because it's so variable, and it's just not very consistent. And
so what do you talk about the minutes? I know that if you're going to put in a septic tank, a lot of times if it's unknown property and not a recorded plat, then you have to perk it so that you know how many minutes that it takes water
and
to
the difference
soak through.
and a lot of people, we've been doing soil maps in Tennessee since, they've been doing soil maps for a long time. You see soil maps dated back in the 70s and 80s. They've been doing maps. But what they do is there's certain, like a Menvale or a Fullerton, like I was talking about on Clingman Ridge or whatever, that we know that soil moves water well. We know.
When you say moves water, what do you mean? It lets it run out?
We know that if you pour water in a hole, it's just going to suck it right up generally.
So as far as the septic tank, I live there, I'm going to go to the bathroom, flush the commode.
You're not going to have any problem.
It's going to haul ass.
Yeah. So we know based on these, historically speaking, these types of soils, but it's still important to map it because it does change. I mean, you got some heavy Fullertons that you might rate 75 MPI, and then you got some, it's going to range in characteristics. But so,
75,
we try to,
it's 75.
Well, it's important when you're doing a development, like if you're in that map, like if you're in the Fullerton Menvale, there's a big difference, between Menvale and Fullerton, because if Fullerton's 60 and Menvale's 45, you're going to be able to get more lots with a 45 MPI soil. You just don't need as much septic area.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it means a lot. So
if you're developing property.
So we bore holes every 100 feet. In general.
A grid?
It doesn't have to be a grid per se, but it's just kind of a...
Now, when you say every 100 feet, let's reverse now. If I go to your office, back to your perfect job, you have a mailbox on the front porch and you pick it up and you put your stuff in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that as far as an office. Mm-hmm. And so do you do your paperwork in the basement? Yeah,
we have our house is, we have a den area and there's a basement, there's a bedroom down there, and it has a bathroom and a shower in it. I use that. And so I have an office. I have a desk, and I've got my plotter, my HP plotter I've had for years. It's a good plotter, and I bought it back in '08 or something like that. I've had to fix it a couple of times, but it still runs good. Then I got other printers I use, and
What would you print? The results?
well, I like to plot. Well, I like to. I enjoy like working on the computer somewhat, even though it's annoying doing it on Sunday or Saturday when you should be out running around playing. But I enjoy working on the computer in AutoCAD, and so I like to have surveyors send me an AutoCAD drawing, and sometimes I overlay the topos and stuff on there, and so. But when I do a soil map, I like to draw it in CAD, because I used to have to hand draw the maps, and I hated it, because if you make a little mistake, you got to erase it, and it's just much harder. And we would have to, back when I first started working for my former boss, we'd have a table, and when we did we'd have a light table. So you'd take the map that you did in the field, and then you would overlay the new map on top of it and line it up. And then you would take a pencil and you would just lightly trace your soil lines. And then you would go back over it with like a Sharpie or something, like a darker pen, and make it dark. And then we would have to tape labels on there, and do all that. But what if you taped a bunch of labels and you said, you know what, I meant to call that, I put Fullerton on there, and I meant to call that Minvale.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock at night.
Now you got to untape it, and so CAD, you can just sit there, and if you make mistakes, it's so easy to change those mistakes, and then I can plot everything directly off of my plotter. If the developer needs the maps, and I'm sure I printed some of these for you, I print off a big map directly from my house.
So when is that done?
The final.
Yeah, I mean, is it on Saturdays, Sundays, or
Saturdays and
or you
Sundays
take a rain day?
Well, ideally, you do a little bit each time. Like if I go out in the field and I map that day, I at least download the points, maybe, and overlay them on my map, and get a little bit done. But then, the subdivision, sometimes if that's all I have to draw, it doesn't take me. What takes a long time is the individual reports. Like if I do 12 or 15 of those in a week, it takes me forever to draw those up. I mean, it's hours and hours in front of the computer. I wish I could do it fast. I'm trying to think of ways to do it faster, but I just.
Is that rain days? I mean, say you wake up and say, hey, with you can't really start
Well, I'm
after.
actually supposed to be taking an office day on Friday. I've been saying this for a long time. I'm supposed to do that, but I'm just so behind all the time. The demand's so high. I just feel like I have to work.
And it could rain Monday through Thursday.
Yeah,
and
sometimes
then
I get
Friday.
a rain day. Yeah. So, but I don't know. If I can keep a solid schedule, I may go ahead and schedule those days off. But then I get behind. If I feel like I get behind for this or that reason, then I'll start working Fridays, and then I'm doing the work on the weekend. And so
this gravy job we talked about ends up being some work on Saturdays
and Sundays. Yeah, just almost 7 days a week kind of job. Yeah, it's just because I'm a one-man show. I'm doing my invoices. I'm doing the maps. I'm answering emails. I'm calling people. I'm doing it all. So it's a lot of hours.
So you don't go. You try not to go out in the field on Saturdays.
No, I've gone before, but I actually try on Saturday. I have a few things I'll do on Saturday morning, like I go to the bank and post office and things like that, and then I might try to do a little mapping. But I try to do stuff with the family if I can. We'll go out to the river or something, have a day. But unfortunately, I might, on Sunday be stuck working.
You mean like all day?
Yeah, all day,
like,
hours.
Like go down and start at night. Go down the stairs and start at 9 o'clock.
Sometimes 7. And when I wake up, 6:30 or 7, I'll be in my office.
So it's like all day long. You probably just left to come here.
I was working right before I came here. Yeah.
You watch the ball game or something? While
I have
a
TV, and thanks to the new TV they have, the Roku and everything, I can watch the TV in my office. I don't have cable, but
Right, yeah.
I have the football game on in the background. I'm listening to it.
I know Randy Brown watches Gunsmoke over and over and over and over.
Yeah, sounds like him.
But you don't do that. You do the ball game.
I usually like the ball games. I'll watch football, or I might have golf on or something like that, watching it. Yeah.
Just something. It's almost just
Sometimes
noise.
the news or something.
It's almost just some noise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's noise in the background. It makes you feel like you're not just down there in a quiet office.
It makes you feel like you're not alone somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy it, but yeah, things do need. I do need to get it to where I'm, doing that office day and back off of that working, on the weekends. But like I say, it's just the nature of it. It's just, has to be done.
I've thought about that too. If you took on a person to do that stuff that you do on the weekends, you'd have to spend $40,000 or $50,000, and they wouldn't do it. And you'd have to build 2 more buildings. So it's really pointless. You're really better off just to do it yourself.
And I've thought a lot of that, and like my former boss. He had a guy from the high school there, Oconee County High School. He was a CAD guy or whatever in high school. He knew CAD already and had taken classes like that. And he would come in after school and do work. And we had another guy that was a computer guy. He come in, and we had guys that just would go out and GPS, run the GPS for us. And so he did, he had people helping him, but he still worked a lot of long hours himself. But his operation was quite a bit, like I said, being in the proximity of Atlanta that we were and all the stuff we got in the mountains at the time, he got a lot of work. I mean, he was doing a lot more production than I've ever done, in terms of doing subdivisions and everything.
Right.
I mean, I do a lot of subdivisions, but nothing like we were doing back then, where it's just one after the
Here, David, have some of these.
Okay.
Those things are dangerous.
Peanut butter in the
Oh,
middle.
no, they got their pretzels with peanut butter in the middle. So let me ask you this. The size of the septic tank and the lines really restricts how big a lot's got to be. And I know that the minutes that it takes for water to drain out and how long it takes for the waste to dissipate is a factor. But what is the future? I mean, I know that now they have to have what do they call that? That used to they'd have to have a septic area for the septic tank, and now they have to have an area for duplication.
Yeah.
So it's more than they used to have. So how else can we deal with it without? Here,
we're not out of soil, but Bradley County is not known for its good soil. There's other counties that surround here that, like Hamilton in general, I think is better soil than Bradley is. I mean, but Bradley's got some areas with really bad soil. So, at some point we're going to run out of usable soil. So, they're going to these, when you do a subdivision, they're going to what they call decentralized sewage treatment plants.
Now explain that.
Well, what it is decentralized, basically a centralized sewer. It means you go to a public sewer system. That's centralized sewer. So decentralized is just it's one subdivision will have its own sewage treatment plant, and
So you'd have to have a homeowners association?
Well, not all, but like for example, Hamilton County, they won't let that be run by a private company. They require the WWTA, Wastewater Treatment Association of Hamilton County. They have to oversee that and approve it, and then they have to manage it.
Boy, you're getting way over my head.
So
So
in
in other
Bradley
words,
now, Core Utilities is one that does it. You have to have a public, utility that manages it. I guess just because, it's more stable, it's going to be there, more long term. And if this private company went out of business, all of a sudden this subdivision is going to be stuck with nobody to manage it.
so what is that? They take the waste and pump
What
it
it
to
is each time it's really expensive initially, like on a developer, and that's why a lot of developers aren't interested in doing it right now. I mean, just doing individual septic tanks is by far, because then a lot of times when they sell a lot, the builder has to pick up the cost of the septic system. Mm-hmm. Whereas with one of these, you're paying for everything just about. The developer's paying for it all. So, but what it is each house will have most of the systems run where they're pumped. The effluent's pumped from the septic tank to the
So
the
everybody
main,
still has
to
a
the sewer
septic
main.
tank.
Yeah, they have a septic tank, and
Instead of it going to field lines,
instead of it going to the field lines, it's pumped to the sewer main, and that travels down to these large tanks.
when you say sewer main, you're not talking about Cleveland Utilities sewer
Yeah,
main.
just like for the whatever, just for that
Yeah.
particular subdivision, whatever 4-inch
Yeah.
pipe that goes next to the road or under the road. And so then that goes out down to the facility that treats it.
Now, where is that located?
Well, anywhere in the development that they choose. I mean, I don't guess it matters where it's located if everything's being pumped. But,
How is it treated at
but if
this?
it's gravity fed, then you would want it to be at a low spot, in the development.
So if I was going to develop 50 acres or 100 acres that had bad soil, they say, okay, you can't develop this property because the septic tank lines are bad. No, I can, because I can have all the waste going to each individual septic tank. We can pump it to a main line. The main line goes over to this common area.
Yeah, drip field.
And so does that area treat it before it puts it in that?
I mean, it's the same thing as as septic lines. I mean, the soil.
But wouldn't it
you
have
don't
to
think
be?
about it, but the soil is like a filtering system. It's nature's way of filtering this water coming out. There's millions of microorganisms in there that eat up this bacteria and stuff and treat it. And that's the reason why it's not ideal to have a seasonal high water table. If you're in a low area in a landscape position, lots of times it's going to be wet. Well, that water that enters into that water table, if it's not treated, it just goes right down to the creek. And now you have this untreated water getting in our creeks, in our water supply. So it's not good at all. Because there's all kinds of bad stuff in water now. I mean, they say when people take medications that there's traces of those medications in the water. Just also there's metals that come from cleaners people pour down their drain, heavy metals, things like that.
So that's why you don't have septic lines in low-lying areas. I notice when they draw septic lines,
Yeah,
they'll always skip the drain areas because, in theory, it could get into the drain, run to the creek, and
yeah, you want the soil to be well oxidized, and and put in not too deep. I think the shallower, because you got more oxygen in there, and the shallower you are in the soil, there's more oxygen, more microorganisms.
So in this community system, septic system, it would run to one location and it would be filtered. And what it
is the water that goes into those lines. Those big tanks that the water goes into, there's like a filter media in there, like trickle filter, if you will. And it sprays it across that, and then it goes down. Well, it actually gets this sort of bacteria or whatever that grows on there, and that treats that.
So it would reduce.
Treats the water as it filters down. same thing like as a creek flows, as the water's flowing, it kind of gets treated, oxidized and treated, as it's flowing.
I heard somewhere that if water runs across a rock 7 times, it's purified. Is that an old? Where did I hear that?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's kind of the same thing, and
it doesn't make sense, does it? That it would be purified.
Yeah.
But there is such a thing as water. I mean, how does a well is clean water, or a spring? How does that get clean? It's filtered through the dirt?
Yeah, that's the ideal. Yeah, water that's going down there is treated before it enters into that aquifer.
But you don't know that.
Right. But it's some of the water that, if you have a failing septic, it might not necessarily get into the aquifer, but it might end up in the creek,
or just laying on top of the ground. It just won't. The ground won't soak it up. In other words.
Yeah, and some systems that are in these water tables don't necessarily fail, and I guess the only explanation is that the water that comes out just kind of continues flowing with the water that's flowing, the groundwater. But now the seasonal high water table is, it's seasonal. So in the summer, if you're in one of those areas, and this is the reason why we went to soil maps, because if you do just a perk test, okay, you go out to a floodplain, you dig a hole in the ground in the summer and you pour water in it. Well, floodplains are typically sandy. They're loamy because it's washed from the creek. It's got a lot of sand and loose gravels in it, and so you pour water in there and it'll just disappear instantly. Perk's really almost too fast. But now you go back to that same spot in the winter, you dig a hole in it, it fills up with water. So instead of soaking up the water, it fills up with water. So, that's the difference, and that's a seasonal high water table, and that's what we want to keep septics out of. So that's the reason why we do the soil map, and we determine if there exists a seasonal high water table. That's part of it.
And then in a big subdivision where they have that community septic lines, I call it, they're filtered, like the majority of it's filtered out, and that's when you need somebody to maintain it, to change the filters or whatever.
Yeah, they stay. They're kind of a deal now where a lot of it's done remotely. They've got iPads or even their phone that gives them real time data, about that system, like what the numbers are, how much flow is going through it, how much, is coming and going. And so they've got to keep track of that. And but yeah, one of the things that happens is a pump needs to be replaced, filters or valves, that sort of thing. There's constantly something going wrong there.
And that's why they have to be managed by somebody that...
Yeah. And the water, it has to be tested, and it's got to meet the quality, certain qualities and everything. So
now I always hear people say, why don't we go to the mound system? And I don't know what that means. It seems to me like there's no magic in getting rid of waste.
There's not.
It's just, you can either...
Well,
the only way to speed it up is to not let it out.
Well, I always get this, a lot of people, they think that these new infiltrator lines, the chamber systems, are just some magical system that, if you put them in any soil, that it'll just, help it go away. But it's really not, because at the end of the day, that you're asking that soil to absorb X amount of water in X amount of time in a given day. So there's no magical system. There is nothing you can do. It's just the soil. If it won't absorb, then it just won't absorb.
And if you want to haul it, if you say, hey, I've got a real good system where we can take it and put it in this pipe and send it to this place and clean it, that's what they call the sewer system. So there's really no magic to this thing. Now, if you had a subdivision that had a community filtration thing, then you'd have to have a homeowners and
Well,
somebody wouldn't.
people have to pay a sewer bill just
This
like
guy
you would
would
if you lived
pay
in
and
the
that
city.
guy wouldn't. He wants his brother-in-law to do it, and his wants his brother-in-law to do it. So he just
Well, what
be
they
an
do
argument.
on those community systems, if you don't pay your bill, they'll shut you off.
Turn your valve
Yeah, they'll
off.
turn your valve and lock you out of the system. You won't have any sewer.
Then they'd have a lawyer saying, "No, he did pay it. He didn't.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he did pay it. You
Yeah,
just
it
didn't
could
see
be a
him pay
headache.
it."
Now I've done some of those. There's a guy that we've done a couple Love's truck stops. They put them on those large drip systems.
I mean, yeah, because there are a lot of places that don't have sewer, right?
Yeah, we did one in McNairy County.
That's where
Walking Tall guys.
Walking
from.
Tall, yeah.
Yeah, but Buford,
Buford Pusser.
Yeah, that we did one there in McNairy County. There was a Love's truck stop. I haven't seen it since it's been built, but we did one. They had like 70 acres there, and so that was interesting because I didn't know the soils out there, and a lot of people do not know this, but you know when you get out in West Tennessee, we call them geo or physiogeographic regions. You know, like we're in the Ridge and Valley here, and then you got the Blue Ridge Mountains, and then like the Cumberland Mountains, and then you got the Nashville Basin and Highland Rim and all that stuff. But then when you get into West Tennessee, you're in the southern coastal plain. So those soils are coastal sediment soils that used to be under a shallow sea. And
Now,
there's
wait a
little,
minute.
there, you'll see little marine fossils and stuff. You'll see little pieces of shale, you know,
Now-
like marine, you know, like shells.
Now wait just a minute. You're telling me that like Memphis,
Mm-hmm.
at one time, was underwater.
Yeah, that area, because it came up like a bell shape around the Mississippi. And when you take Alabama and Georgia, it cut like the northern Alabama is ridge and valley, just like we are. And then, but you eventually in Georgia, you get into the southern coastal plain once you start, you know, getting past Atlanta.
So it was almost
And
part of the sea.
they say a shallow sea came in there, and so it's pure sand. Like sometimes you'll be digging a hole out there, and it's just nothing but sand in West Tennessee.
And shells.
Yeah, pieces of shell in it, just like you're
So
you're on the beach digging a hole in the ground. That's what you're going to get.
So from a soil scientist perspective, that's not a theory. That's true. It had to come from there.
Yeah, it had to, and so, but what I was getting
How many
at,
years ago?
I don't know.
I
Who
mean,
knows? But yeah, but when I was out there, well, this guy asked me, you know, will you come out here with me and look at this site in West Tennessee? And I'm like, well, I don't know the soils out there. I didn't want to do it. But so I said, well, look, I'll go with you. We'll walk it. You know, I pulled up the soil survey map. I said, if it's something I think I can handle, you know, I'll let you know and we'll. So we found a spot that I thought the soils were soils that I can deal with these soils. These are something similar to what I've mapped in the past, you know, like down the Piedmont, the kind of, you know, same characteristics. So we picked an area and we mapped a 2-acre area, and that's where they put but it was, you know, ideally when you're doing this job, you need to stick with your area of expertise. Like if you're a Piedmont guy, you know, you need to work in the Piedmont. You know, Piedmont guys don't need to, I ain't saying they can't or not to, but generally they're not going to come to the Ridge and Valley because they don't know the soils. You know?
isn't that true in everything?
I mean, they know soil, like they can classify soils, like they can sit there and dig and say, well, I'm seeing this and this, you know, and I'm, you know, you can get it done. I mean, you can do your job because as a soil scientist, you want to think that I can go anywhere and classify soil, you know, to some degree, but when you work in an area like I do, the Ridge and Valley, you get to know the soils, you get to know the landscape positions, and it just helps you do your job. So I was just really out of my area over there. And then they had to get a guy from the state to come review it, and he was kind of joking, what are you doing out here? You know, I know him, you know, Paul Brawley, I see him at the meetings. Yeah. He's the soil consultant supervisor of West Tennessee, or was. He retired since then, but. So they got a soil consultant supervisor in West Tennessee, they got one in Middle Tennessee, and they got one in East Tennessee.
Who makes him the soil consultant?
Well, they work for TDEC. And the way the program was originally set up was
TDEC, Tennessee
Tennessee
Department.
Department of Environment and Conservation.
Okay.
Really before private soil consultants started doing a lot of the work around here. Most of it was just done by, or a lot of it was done by, and they still do it this way. TDEC, they have local environmentalists, and if they see a problem with the soil, they have the guy from the state come review it, or do a soil map on it. Mm-hmm. And so the guy out in West Tennessee, that's what he was. And the guy, Billy Roach, he's from East Tennessee here. He lives up in Englewood. And so they also do quality control. So if there's like an issue with somebody's soil map, or a homeowner has a failing system, and they're like, what do we do? They call the environmentalist. Well, first thing the environmentalist does is they call Billy Roach, and then he comes down here and they start reviewing the site to see if it's a soils issue. They're trying to get down to the bottom of why this system's failing. What's the cause of the failing system? Is it the soils? Is it the installation?
The pipes.
Sometimes it ain't always easy to figure out. I mean, because it's buried. Nobody knows. But
a lot of times it's the septic tank settled and the line didn't, and it's mm-hmm. not getting out.
Yeah. So and you try to. There's ways you can figure out what the cause might be, but that's what he does, and that's what those guys do. They're quality control, and then they review a lot of sites, And then also, like those drip sites I was talking about earlier, mm-hmm. Like the pits, where after he has to come review the pits, like they have to come behind me. So I describe the pit, then he looks at the pit and describes it as well, and then compares our notes, and like, are we in agreement that this is, this structure and this texture and all that, before it gets submitted. So
let's go back to his picture. I want to see his picture. You got it handy? I want to see your pictures. You tell me what you're wearing. See now the vest. What do you keep in the vest?
Well, I keep the clinometer like we talked about, and then I keep the
that's where we left off.
But I keep the compass, and then
the kilometer and the compass?
Yeah, and then the big pockets, I keep flagging tape. So I mark my hole locations with flagging tape, so the environmentalists can see where I've been. And, you see my flag, you see a hole right there beside it, you're like, yeah, David checked this spot. So it's also a way for them to, it's also a way for them to, see, they can see where I map, so they know where they're. It's control points.
Now this back to this right here is exactly. You're right. This is the coastal area. So at one time, West Tennessee, Memphis area was actually coastal waters.
Mm-hmm. And that's the. Excuse me. Sorry.
You got COVID?
I hope not.
If you do, I do, right?
Yeah, you do now.
Yeah.
But it does come up there.
That's what they're talking about, isn't it?
And it goes all the way around in North Carolina but what does that say in the bottom? Georgia,
Georgia Soil Survey.
Southern
Coastal Plain.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What's unique?
Yeah, and it's crazy, and people don't know.
So a shark could have, when they say coastal plain, how deep would it be?
The soils?
I mean, how deep would the salt water have been right there?
I think it was shallow generally.
When you say shallow, you mean 20 feet or 2?
I don't know. Probably, I think shallow. I don't know. I always heard shallow, but I don't know what shallow means. I mean, I would think 5 feet, 10 feet, 5 to 10 feet maybe, but not like when you get out into the deep ocean where it gets these 100 feet.
So back to that picture, you got the vest, you got the pedometer, what do you call it? Clinometer. And a compass, or is it the same thing?
I have the compass. Sometimes I carry a Garmin, I carry the Trimble GPS. That's what I mark my features with. It gets sub-meter accuracy.
So when you're, what do you mean
sub-meter within 3 meters on average.
3 feet.
3 feet is what I meant to say. So if I click a data point, that's what I do. When I auger a hole, I click it with the GPS.
You say, I'm here. Click.
And then I download that on the computer, and then I overlay it onto the maps
On Sundays.
on Sundays.
Yeah. And then
When
leave it on.
everybody's out playing golf or out on the river, I'm sitting there downloading
and
maps.
then you put it on the front porch in the morning
for somebody
to pick up after you've made your lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Now back to the picture. The picture you've got a clipboard.
Clipboard that
What's
I
the
carry
clipboard for?
Well, one thing I like to do is be prepared, ideally. So when a person sends me a site,
I mean, how do you get happier than this guy is right here?
You don't.
I mean, what's that in the case?
Well, I got gloves. You can see I got a little glove clip. I've got leather gloves. That's for sampling soils. It looks like I've got my little flag holder thing there where I carry the little wire flags up in the ground.
Yeah.
I've got the Trimble GPS pouch, and you can see in my left hand I've got the Trimble unit.
Yeah. And probably a pack of matches.
No, I don't. I don't carry those. I carry mace.
What's the mace for?
For a dog.
Or birds or bears.
Maybe bears. Sometimes
and the gloves for augering the hose, I guess.
Well, yeah. And
what if it's 18 degrees outside? You still going?
We do. We'll work year round, and there's some horrible. We've worked out when it's 10 degrees, and the wind blowing. It's horrible, but we just put on multiple layers. I put one of those masks on my face, the covers my face. I have a toboggan. I just dress for the occasion.
Do you have those hand warmer packs?
We do that. Yeah. And sometimes it's just so cold out there. But what I was going to say was sometimes you don't know how to dress. Like you put on a fleece jacket, and then this time of year it's cold when you get out in the morning. And then you put this fleece jacket on. Then you get out there and start walking around the woods. And now you're burning up.
Then you take it
off.
off.
You got to take off the fleece jacket and tie it around your waist. So that gets annoying. Like trying to decide, what layers to bring.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many times we'll go to a job site and I'll get on my truck and I'll just be real cold, when we first get out. And I'll put this fleece jacket on, and then we get, 50 feet walk back into the property. I'm like, I'm already hot, It's just the way. See, it's hard to determine, but I think this time of year the best fleece is not good when you're doing it. I think just a sweatshirt works the best, just something that's warm, but fleece is just too hot. That's only when it gets really cold I wear the fleece.
In your lunch that day, you'd bring a warm lunch.
I've done that before, but it's been a long time. I've brought soup and stuff, but no, generally I don't.
Just too much trouble?
Just the same old lunch year round. Mm-hmm. Same old sandwich over and over.
Yeah. But you were saying earlier, fruit.
I like the fruit, watermelon, pineapple.
How do you bring pineapple?
Well, I'll buy a pineapple and cut it up and put it in a bowl, and that'll last me the week. And I'll cut up some watermelon or bring grapes. But I just love fruit, and that's my, kind of like my dessert after I've had my sandwich. I'll eat my little fruit.
Well, you got the best job.
I bring a Coke, usually like a Coke Zero, but that's usually the only Coke I drink all day is the one Coke Zero. But I try to drink a lot of water, because especially in the summer, when you're burning up, I try to drink at least 3 to 4 quarts of water in a day.
Do you get a lot of ticks on you in the summer?
Well, you do. They're always the worst, in the early spring, and they're just really, really bad at that time. You're just constantly coming home and finding one, but I haven't found one on me in several weeks now. But one thing I do worry about is yellow jackets a lot. They're pretty dangerous. And
have you ever gotten into a swarm of them?
I have. Luckily, I've never gotten just really bit with them, but I know some people that have, like 20 or more bites, and they it can be dangerous. People's died, from yellow jackets, and you'll just get on a nest and you won't know you're on it until it's too late. You'll be standing there augering a hole, and then just all of a sudden they're all over you. They're all over your pants leg.
What would you do?
I mean, it doesn't happen often.
What do you do?
You run, for one thing.
Just run?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wear prescription safety glasses. A lot of people nobody really asks me why I wear them, but they kind of look like sports glasses, like you see.
Were they in that picture?
They might have been, I'm not sure, but I wear those, and one of the reasons is if you're running through the woods.
Are those prescriptions?
I don't know, that might be these. I think I got these on in that picture. But
so everything on you there has a purpose.
Exactly. Yeah, I got my cell phone in my little side pocket, and yeah, that's the gear I put.
I mean, nothing there is an accident.
No. I mean, the jacket. I also carry a little, like the little scrape tools, they're
5-in-1 they call them.
Well, the little what do they call them? It looks like a putty knife,
Yeah.
thing. I carry one of those, and the reason why is sometimes to sample the soil, you got to kind of get in there and dig it out, and that thing tends to work well for that. So I'll carry that in a pocket, and sometimes I'll use it to scrape, because sometimes we'll get in clay that's real sticky, and he'll pull up a sample, and I'll sit there and have to scrape some of that clay off.
Because you're 30-minute walk away or 45-minute walk away from the car.
Sometimes, yeah, 20 minutes.
What if do you carry a flare, like shoot a flare in case something?
No, I mean, it's rare that we're in a situation where we're way off of a road, but I've been on some tracks that are real. You're just out in the middle of
But
nowhere.
you don't know that. When you're going, you don't know if it's...
Yeah, like I did one in this hunting land up in, what county was that?
Tullahoma?
No, it was up there, Warren County, I'll say it is, Warren County. And I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, and it's just me and one. So if something happened, yeah,
What about
you'd
snakes?
be in trouble. Well, we wear those snake chaps, try to. But
always,
it also helps fend off briars. It's good for fending off briars,
What do they come up about, knee or
yeah,
half
about
calf?
to the knee. Yeah, they're called gators, rattlers, I think. Rattlers.
So a snake can't get through them?
I haven't tested it yet, but as far as I know, they can't.
So do you think you had those on there?
No, I didn't have those on there.
Because the area...
I didn't see any need to wear them on that site.
So on that particular site, you thought, did it cross your mind, should I wear these snake boots? And you decided no?
Yeah, I guess so, because it was the vegetation. I guess it was mowed down or, what. Yeah, a lot of times... But we're in the typical woods, I'll wear them, or high grass, I'll wear them.
Have you ever seen any snakes out like that?
I've been doing this like 21 years, and I've never seen a rattlesnake out, and it's crazy. It's just crazy to think that I've never seen a rattlesnake.
Well, maybe they're not out like we think.
Yeah, but in that many years, but I've seen probably about 4 to 5 copperheads, and that's it. One of them was up on, what's that mountain called? It's in Polk County there. Chestnut Mountain?
Star Mountain?
Chestnut Mountain over near Reliance over in there. We were up there digging backhoe pits, and there was a copperhead, and one of the guys that worked with the guy with the backhoe, he chopped it with a machete and killed it.
Yeah. It didn't just run off?
No, he killed it. And then I walked past them before. They're pretty creepy. The copperheads are. They scare me. But we see mostly black snakes, or whatever.
They don't scare you?
Or whether they call them rat snakes chicken snakes or whatever, we see those.
Do they just run off?
Yeah. And sometimes when you first see one of those chicken snakes, it looks almost, poisonous.
When you see it, are they like disguised in the dirt?
They can be, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes they're hard to see, camouflaged.
But they won't hurt you.
No, they're not supposed to hurt you. Black snakes are.
But they would bite?
Like, I wouldn't kill a black snake. I mean, you don't, you know, I think they eat copperhead or something, people said. I don't know.
I don't know if I saw one, I'd just run.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wait and see what kind it was.
Yeah, run or. But the only time I really run is if, like I say, if I get in a yellow jacket's nest. But I've never seen a bear out in the field. My former boss actually had a bear encounter up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it scared him pretty bad. I think he was walking through one of those old little strip mines in Dahlonega. They used to mine for gold.
Yeah.
They'll have these big trenches. You
Yeah.
know? And he was walking through one of those, and there was a bear den down in one of those, and it jumped him. And he went up on the bank, and he started shaking these saplings and like making a lot of noise, and it backed off. But yeah, I've never seen one, luckily. But I've been on some tracks. There was one in particular that we were working on in the Blue Ridge Mountains. There was bear poop just like almost everywhere you looked. And then there was evidence, and I had a little canteen, like a plastic canteen. I had lost it because the belt clip had broke off, so I was having to carry it around, and I'd have to set it down at each hole, and I'd just forgotten about it, and it laid there. Well, we walked by that spot a day or two later, and one of those bears, I think a bear had gotten a hold of it and had teeth marks all in it, you know, holes all the way through it.
Yeah.
But there was bear piles just, I mean, everywhere. And it was really had me on edge, you know, working that track.
You ever been out and couldn't get back? Got lost? Or
No,
do you always
I mean,
have?
Well, no, we carry those GPSs, and but there's been a couple of times. I know there's one time I might have got turned around a little bit. But I do know a soil scientist. When I was down in Georgia, there was a guy I played golf with a lot named Bob Evon. He worked for the NRCS in Greene County, Greenville, Georgia, right there. It's out south of Athens, Georgia. And Bob would work those rural counties down there below, you know, Athens, kind of some of those rural counties. And they're required, those guys that work for the NRCS, they're going out solo a lot, you know, working alone, and they are going on large tracks, you know, in the middle of nowhere, you know, these forestry land and stuff like that, you know, owned by the. And so he was out on, I think, one of those big forestry lands mapping soil, because they do like what I do, but they do it for the U.S. government. We have what we call the National Cooperative Soil Survey, and people can get on there. It's on the Web Soil Survey. You can check it out. You know, you can pull up soil maps. You can use these soil maps to get septic system permits, but they're just general soil maps of the area. But he was down there working on one of those tracks, and he had a four-wheeler, and I think he was walking back to his four-wheeler, but he got lost. And he ended up just walking. He didn't know, and he walked all the way till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Golly.
Yeah, it was like just turning dark when he got lost at 5 or 6, you know, probably kind of in the fall, winter time. And he walked just for 2 hours and finally ended up out on a rural road somewhere.
In other words, he didn't.
And somebody came, I guess, and saw him and asked him.
In other words, he never got unlost. He just ran into a road.
He finally ran into a road, but yeah, that would be so scary. I mean, just to. I don't know. I'd almost panic, I think. I don't know if I could handle that. I just don't know if that's something I could. It'd be scary.
I guess you could scream.
Yeah, it would be very unsettling, I think, to get lost like that.
Well, especially where you're at. I mean, it's not like you went up to Candy Creek Ridge Road and you got lost. You know you're going to run
into a road.
Yeah, you know you're going to run into the front road. You don't even remember where you drove in at.
Well, some of those rural areas, you know, those big forests, you know, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds or thousands of acres, and just, you know, you could really, you know, and some people when they get lost, you might walk in circles.
Yeah.
I mean,
do y'all wear, you and your guy with you, has he been the only guy you've had?
I've had him for a few years now, yeah.
Are those guys hard to find?
Yeah, it's hard to find somebody, yeah, that likes to do the work, and it's hard work.
And you may just work 3 days a week, depending on the rain, right?
Well, we work generally 5. I mean, it even quite honestly with the rain, it has to be one of those days that it's an all day. I feel that it's going to rain all day. It's just going to be a washout before I'll call off work. Because if it's just kind of these sort of scattered showers and stuff like that, we still work. We'll just put on rain gear. And there are times, we're out doing a job and, we get caught in the rain and we just tough it out,
What do you do? Like put in a poncho?
Well, we just put a raincoat on and, or a poncho. And sometimes we've just stood there like with a poncho over us and wait on it to stop pouring down. You just stand there and hold something over you like this, and it's just pouring over you, like those real torrential downpours. Yeah. We've been caught in those. And then next thing you know, it's sunny again, and we're just back at it.
So you just wait it out.
So every little time I'm so busy that every little time, it might rain today, I can't just call off work. I'm out there running around, and I know there's a time or two it was raining all the time, like a year ago or so. You remember that?
I remember
it was just
that,
like nonstop raining.
Yeah,
nonstop raining. And I had taken a couple of days off, but I was finally like, I can't do this anymore. I'm losing production. I need to get some. And I remember there was one day it just rained on us about all day. It was a miserable day. We just stayed wet. And then you get one job done, and you get in the truck, you take that rain gear off, and then you have to get back out and put on cold, wet rain gear and do it again. It's not fun.
When I get out like that and I get in the shower and it's a hot shower and I think, boy, this has got to be worth a lot of money, to get in a warm shower after being out.
Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, it's nothing like it.
Do y'all wear a mask? Or how are you with COVID? Or I guess if anybody's been not affected by COVID, it would be the guy that just goes to the convenience store for ice and eats lunch with one guy.
Yeah, it's true. It does help. We have very little risk. And then when you do meet a client, you're generally social distancing.
You're meeting a.
Well, when it first started, I remember people were big on social distancing, and you would get a client that was conscientious about it, and you could tell they were kind of, sometimes nobody says anything, but you can tell that they're keeping their distance and you're keeping your distance. But then I've had the ones that just come up, hey, nice to meet you, and get right up in your...
Yeah.
And sometimes I might need to show somebody a map, like we need to talk about. I pull out the map and I'm like, okay, where do you want to, where are we going? And so you kind of have to get a little, but.
You're probably the only guy, I've got a mask in my car for when I go into places and in my glove box. You're probably the only guy that doesn't have a mask in your car.
No, I do actually. Me and Juan, we're both big on wearing our masks when we go in the store. So every morning we stop at the store, and if I get gas, I put my mask on. I go in, do my thing, come out, get in the truck, sanitize my hands. I carry the sanitizer and take off my mask. And that's when we're going in the store.
Now, if you had to go into as many places as I do during the day, you'd probably get lax, right?
Yeah, I've noticed myself getting more lax. I don't wear the mask just all the time. I think we went to Target the other day and I might have not worn one, or didn't have one with me. But I try to generally wear it. I try to do my part, I guess, and wear it, in public places when I can. But, it's really, you're trying to protect not just yourself, but other people. If you have it, you don't want to give it to somebody else.
Of course, where would you get it, right?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I worry about my kids the most, bringing it home. But I was, about 3 weeks ago, I had a cold. I came down with a bad, and it started with my younger son, who's 14. He came down, he said, when he was coming down, he said, Dad, I think I got the Rona. And I said, really? You know, he was getting like a sore throat and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're thinking,
Yeah.
gosh, really? You
Yeah.
know, maybe he is. But you're pretty much at that point, you're like, well, if he's going to get it, then I'm going to get it. You know, there's no turning back.
If he's going to get it, I've got it.
I've got it. Yeah, it's over.
Yeah.
And so he went to the doctor. We had him. Actually, the doctor thought, you know, that maybe it wasn't, or he didn't think it was corona and just thought it was a normal sinus infection or whatever. Wasn't going to test him, but my wife said, no, can you please just test him for the school so they'll, you know, just in case. So they tested him and it came back negative. Well, then my older son came down with the same thing. And then he was out of school some. And then sure enough, I came down with it. And, you know, but I was coughing a lot and people's like, you got the coronavirus?
Yeah,
You know, everybody thinks you have. But I never went and got a test, but you know, to me, I was pretty sure it was just a run-of-the-mill and sinus infection.
Yeah.
I mean, just like I've had in the past. I had
And
a
you're
really bad
outside a
runny
lot, yeah.
nose. I had a little bit of a cough.
And ragweed
I never
was
got
blooming.
chills or a fever. It just seemed like your standard sinus infection. So I never went and got tested. You know, I thought about it, but then again, you know, that's a good time to wear a mask because what if you do, you know, and you're sitting there coughing or whatever. But
yeah. Do you think they'll come up with a vaccine? What's your thoughts?
I think they will, but I believe what they say about it possibly being next year before it's really widely distributed. Unfortunately, and that's pretty ambitious, but from what they say. But yeah, we've got to come up with a vaccine. But I have a feeling that a lot of people aren't going to even take it because my older son's already saying he may not want to take it.
Well, I get a flu shot every year. I mean,
yeah, and I actually need to go get my flu shot.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, if we get a flu shot, why wouldn't we get I mean, if we're worried about it, then why don't we get a shot? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I'm not going.
People are scared to get vaccinated sometimes. I think it's just they.
Well,
they
I don't
feel
want to be
like,
the first
well,
one.
What if I get this and it gives me, you know, they're
Yeah.
afraid
Yeah.
of getting a vaccine, I think. And, but
isn't that like saying, I'm thirsty, give me some water? No, I'm afraid to take the water. Why? Because I'm afraid it'll make me thirsty?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's...
Yeah. Yeah, we got to take it. I think it's, something's going to have to happen, you know, to get back to some kind of normalcy.
Do you go, have you noticed, I mean, you never were a big lunch eater anyway, out, obviously, we've already talked about it, so you don't really notice places out of business or not opened like the rest of us would because you're kind of out.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of the restaurants, I guess most of them have remained open, but they're
half open.
Yeah,
or something.
half open or something like that. And yeah, I think going in there, it's a little risky, you know. But I've done it. You know, we've eaten out some. Last week we went to the new Juicy. Actually, they require you to wear masks.
How was that?
I loved it. I mean, it's.
Well, it's a bad name, isn't it?
I love that place.
The Juicy Seafood.
I'll definitely go back. Well, we've eaten at that one.
No, I know him, Sam. That's the owner, Sam. Sam. I can't think of his
Well, they
last
did a
name.
good job with it. They remodeled the inside. It looks
Yeah.
completely different. I was surprised. I didn't know what to expect. And
What was it, like a seafood buffet or what?
no, I don't think it's a buffet. But
What did you get?
But they have, and it's similar to one I've been in Chattanooga on Gun Barrel. They call it Juicy Crab.
I think that's the
And
same
so
owner.
they put is it?
I think so.
Yeah, they put you get the crab legs, the snow crab legs, or whatever you want to get. A lot of lobster tail, all that. They put it in these spices, and the spices, to me, I love this.
You have
the
to crack it
spices.
open?
Yeah, you have to crack it, peel and eat.
How they
shrimp,
put that
peel
in
and eat.
spices? If it's
Well, they put it in these bags, and they put all those spices in there. You know, and then they have the potato and the little red potato in there, and
so it's better than Ryan's was.
yeah, I never went to Ryan's much. Yeah, I've been there a few times, but yeah, it's been multiple things there. But I'm proud of this new restaurant.
Well,
they built.
that's the same guy that owns. he didn't operate Ryan's, but he had the restaurant before it was called the Juicy Seafood.
Yeah,
And he owns Takoyaki.
Oh, does he? Okay, yeah.
And Cameron's.
My boys, they love takoyaki.
Where they cook it. Cook it in front of you.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Well, David, I believe we've about covered it up. So this right here, this tray of dirt, really has nothing to do with what you do.
No, in some ways it does, but no, I thought you were going to get me about 5 different samples.
Well, it was hard. I got busy.
Where did this come from?
A guy by the name of Clay Breakey's yard on Autumn Drive on Michigan Avenue Road. And that was probably topsoil brought in from another job, right?
It could have been, yeah, very well. But that little rock right there kind of looks like it came from, creek wash, like it's in a floodplain, like it's creek wash.
But what you test is a foot down and 2 foot down, not the first 5 inches.
Yeah, not the topsoil. No, not really. We're not.
I mean,
this does look like it's probably taken from some kind of, bottom land, like wash area, like low-lying area. Does he live in somewhere like that? Yeah. That looks like where it came from.
But you've got the most interesting, sought-after job. I guess it's a good thing that people pay you to do it because you do it for free.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, sometimes I've said that, I should pay you to let me work here. So beautiful. Yeah. And we go up on Signal Mountain, you got these views. And
so where do you go tomorrow?
Tomorrow I'm going to Blue Water, or what do they call it? Blue Bay. It's over in Dayton. It's a campground. What's it called? Blue huh?
Blue Hole. No, that's where they have the
Blue.
I've been there. I've been there.
Campground. I've been there. Highway 30.
Yep, and there's a ball field there that has a sign on it that says Dixie baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I did a.
Well, he's doing an expansion.
I did a
more campground sites.
I did a pediatrics doctor's office there, believe it or not.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was a nice
okay.
place to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had a little restaurant there, but I guess it's out of business now.
Mm-hmm.
So while the rest of us are here beating our heads against the wall, you're going to be sitting in Dayton
in a field
eating a ham sandwich.
And then I got to leave there, and there's a guy from Cleveland here. He's looking to buy some land in Birchwood, and I'm going to look. I've done some maps for him before, and same guy. He had a place out on what's that? Bates Pike, almost to the Polk County line.
Mm-hmm.
He had a big 25-acre place out there, and then now him and his mom's going to buy something in Birchwood there. So I'm looking at that. So and then maybe another site or two. So I always have plenty to do. Always have plenty to do.
Well, David, I enjoyed you coming.
Thanks for having me, Dee.
I really
enjoyed
appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.